Welcome to the Pursuit of Growth show, where we hold candid conversations with fascinating individuals from all walks of life so that we can learn about their passions and successes and failures, lessons learned, and how they apply personal growth to their lives. We'll end this conversation with key takeaways that can all be implemented to better ourselves and the lives of all the rest of the people around us. My name is Sammy Gonzalez, and I'm joined with my co-host and good buddy, Greg Brinkley. Greg, how's it going today?
Man, it's going great, Sammy, and I am very excited to introduce our special guest for this show, our good friend Grant Price. And for those of you that are meeting Grant for the first time, he is a mentalist and magician who provides mind-blowing entertainment for private events. Grant Price has been an entertainer all his life. His biggest pet peeve is entertainment that is impersonal, offensive, or condescending. He has witnessed too many performers with an air of I'm smart, I'm cool, just shut up and watch me. This isn't the demeanor of quality entertainment. What Grant does is give your audience a show they will love by making them part of the show. He provides magic performances of the highest caliber without all the pandering. When Grant hits the stage, the whole show is about your audience, making you look good and setting you up as the expert event planner. Grant has been performing for 20 years for over 70,000 people, including companies like Chic-Fil-A, Ferrari, and country music superstar Luke Bryan. And most recently, Vogel Alcove at our annual Day One DFW event. Grant, we're just going to jump right in with a question. Can you tell us what is a mentalist and what is the story of how you decided to pursue a career as a mentalist?
Great. Yes. What is a mentalist? A mentalist is basically just a mind reader. We'll get into this in the conversation, I'm sure, but I guess it's important to clarify. I always have to clarify in my job. Mind reader in the sense that I've learned to pay attention to details that you give away that you don't know. So I'm not psychic. I'm a Christian, so I'm not Satan, nothing like that. But yeah, basically just a mind reader. And then as far as getting the way I got started, I got started as a magician. Like, the bio says 20 years, and you look at me and you're like, so you started before you were born? But I got started in magic at 7 years old. Not too long after that, did my first show. It was for my neighbors. Their daughter was having a birthday, so they had me do a couple of tricks, and I still have the video footage of that, which is embarrassing, but it's crazy to look back at. So I started in as a magician, and mentalism and magic are cousins, I guess. So they're not that different, but I think two things drew me to mentalism specifically. One is that I think you get in many ways far more amazement with basically nothing. It's just you and another person having a conversation and demonstrating some mind reading. That's one thing, and magic is incredible. So that's not like it's not a dig on magic. I have some of my favorite performers in all of entertainment. So magic, mentalism, comedy, music, all of those things. Some of my favorite entertainers of all time are magicians. But I love the aspect of nothing is there. And also the fact that one of that basically it is an illusion, kind of like it's not real, but I really did it. So like the elephant appears on stage, that the molecules of an elephant didn't somehow accumulate on the stage. Something happened, maybe a trap door, maybe something else. But mentalism has that, like, I tell you for real, like your the name of your best friend, or like your phone password, those kinds of things. I can really do it. So in one sense, it's real that I really did it, but it's not real in the sense that I can like see into your brain or anything like that. So that's kind of that's kind of the long and believe it or not, actually the shorter version of that, but did magic for years, saw mentalism, was just fascinated by it. And then once I started doing it, I was hooked, and I said, yeah, this is what I want to do.
Love that. And so we definitely want to explore a little bit more about kind of the genesis of you starting a career as a mentalist and what it took to do that. And we definitely want to talk about kind of the science behind really understanding people and being able to observe and use a lot of the things that that I believe you probably utilize in the work that you do. I think that's going to be a really fascinating conversation to get to. But before we jump into that, I just wanted to ask you if you'd share the backstory. When we introduced you, we mentioned that you performed for Luke Bryan, the country music star. How did that come about, and what exactly did you do for Luke?
Yeah, so to be clear on that performance, I performed for Luke, not I didn't open for him. So basically, they were doing so there was a tour going on. Not that it matters. I think it was the Kill the Lights tour. I'll say this: I don't know much in country music. I listen to some country, but it's not my main genre. So honestly, I was glad that I at least knew Luke's name, because I don't know a lot of country singers' names. So whenever I got the booking request, that was kind of crazy just seeing his name pop up. But so it was the last night of their tour, or excuse me, the night before the last night of their tour, and they were performing at the Cowboys Stadium. And so, I mean, this is a couple months beforehand, obviously, but the way that came about was I just got a booking request through my website for that night. And so it was his manager, and I asked her how she found me. And she said, she just Googled Dallas Magician. And I work really hard on the search engine optimization side of my website. And so that was a huge compliment. Just the fact that popped up. Like, it was pretty new that I had been working on that. So I was really surprised that it had been that quick. But yeah, that was how she found me. That you didn't ask for this, but a funny caveat to that is I thought, man, this is gonna be it. Like, this is going to launch. Luke's gonna ask me to open for shows for him, and then I'm just gonna be on the road, and this will be what makes my career. And she told me, she said, when we get a performer, oftentimes, like, we know a lot of other music bands and things like that. So if other people are coming through and doing concerts at AT&T Stadium, they'll likely reach out to you. And I did that show and never heard from him again.
Oh, no.
So this is a good humble pie for me. I hadn't gotten the big head of like, man, I'm gonna like launch into stardom, but it was just funny. It was a one-time deal, but it was cool to meet him. He was super nice.
Yeah. What exactly was it with him and his band? Was it more of an intimate type show? What exactly did you do for him?
Yeah, sorry. They actually just had me do like cocktail roaming magic is kind of the term I've coined. So when I do events, it's usually both. I do the cocktail roaming magic and then followed by a stage show later in the night. But they were just having a party the night before their final concert, and so it was just all the bands there. So Little Big Town, Chris Stapleton, Luke Bryan. There were others. Those were the people I knew, and I unlocked. I believe it was Chris Stapleton. I unlocked his cell phone, and I told him his phone password, and that was kind of that was something I walked away from. Like, yep, I know Chris Stapleton's phone password.
Well, that's why they haven't called you back, is because
because I was selling that online.
Yeah, you changed it on them, and they just couldn't get back into the phone, and that's got all your contact information on it. That's
right.
So that's an awesome story. I'm a fan. I mean, as Greg knows this too, I'm always a fan of kind of origin stories, and always like to understand, like, where people came from, what they're going through, how they're getting there. And that's really what the pursuit of growth is really all about, is setting this roadmap and this lifestyle to pursuing growth, and no matter what you're doing. So the question is, we wanted to learn a little bit more about what your journey has been like. I mean, because you don't go to college to become a mentalist, right? You don't go to trade school to become a mentalist. So maybe just fill us in a little bit on that journey. I know you said you started young, but then what's that kind of rise been like to where you are today?
Yeah. One correction, there actually is such a thing as clown school, and there is a degree in magic, clowning, but I think you're right. I don't think there is one for mentalism. So, but it was crazy when I learned that, and not many magicians who go full time actually go to clown school. Funny enough, but it's a bummer. It's a bummer. But yeah, there have been a lot of different things, and I don't know if it's yeah. I mean, it may sound a bit cliche or like I'm supposed to say this, but I will give as many details, ask whatever you want about how I got to where I am. But truly, time and time again, I have seen how the reason I am where I am is because God has provided throughout my career. Like there are just crazy things that are just like flukes. I mean, again, I don't know how much y'all know about SEO, but even Luke Bryan or his manager finding me, I didn't have enough of a ranking yet. I had just started my website. It takes time for it to get up there. So that's just one example. But I just say that because at the start of it, really, that's not just like a thing I know I'm supposed to say. So, but how exactly God did that is kind of cool. So, so like I say, it started when I was 7, and honestly, I think that that word of mouth, or that the word of mouth for what I do was one of the biggest ways. I mean, everyone says, and it's true, but because it's true, that word of mouth is the most effective form of advertising. And it's funny because at 7 years old, if you asked me what I wanted to be for when I grew up, I probably would have told you a magician, a firefighter, or a dinosaur. And so I did want to be a magician for as long as I can remember, but that shouldn't be something that impresses people. As I joke, like to illustrate that it really shouldn't be. There are lots of people who wanted to, and just because I happened to become one doesn't mean that at 7 I knew that's what I was going to do. So it is cool though, because it just never went away, and that actually became a little bit of some complication. I say complication, confusing to my family, especially extended family members. At the point where I was past, like, okay, that's just a dream, or he's just talking, to, oh, he's doing this for real. My extended family on my mom's side, we're really close, and even yet, my grandmother on that side, when I was about to graduate college, and I had definitely made the decision I was doing this full time long before then. Probably the start of college was when I was around 17. So when I said, yeah, this is definitely it. And so, my grandmother was asking me what I was going to do when I graduated, and I said, Mama, I'm gonna do what I've been doing. I'm gonna be a magician. And she is not the type to, like, you need to be a doctor for me to be proud of you. Like, she is like she's the sweetest grandmother. And again, not just saying that because I have to, like, she really is, and is so encouraging and builds you up. And so it was even funny just because it was kind of out of character for her to go, what? And then my mom's name is Susan. She goes, Susan, did you know that Grant wants to keep doing magic? Well, you have to tell him that he can't do this full time when he graduates. And my mom was like, Mother, he's been saying that his whole life, that he wanted to do this. So she was like, no. And then again, like every time I'm there, every time I see her, like she's always been encouraging and asking how things are going, and always excited to celebrate with me the successes. So anyway, but so yeah, going back 7, and then just kind of progressed from there. And you'll just ask me if I'm not being detailed enough on certain aspects, but yeah, I mean, started doing that at 7, and I was self-taught the whole time. So there are lots of magic books out there, lots of literature that you can read, and if you know where to look, and the longer you're in it, the better places to look. And so, yeah, I never had like a mentor or anything, even actually considered it in college, considered taking a year off to kind of tour with a magician who I had a lot of respect for, and decided not to do that through a lot of prayer. It just felt like, no. And actually through the encouragement of another friend who, he's super nice, because he says we're kind of peers, and in reality he was the closest thing I had to a magic mentor growing up. And so it's really cool just that his mindset is, no, we're just peers, but I learned a lot from him. But I was talking to him about following this other magician for a year, and he said, well, send me a video of one of your shows. And so this was like 18 or 19. And I sent it to him, and he watched it, and he got back to me and said, you just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing well. So I was like, man, like, honestly, I was waiting for all kinds of critiques on the show. And I'm sure there was plenty. Like, he didn't say you're perfect. He said, keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
So anyway, but that was just like the most, just a lot of encouragements like that along the way. But yeah, learning that. And then I just got out and did it. Like, again, at around 7 or 8, I did my first show. I wasn't necessarily doing shows all throughout, childhood. But I did that one and sought out opportunities to perform. So I was homeschooled my whole life. As so naturally, I hate being in front of audiences. I just put myself in situations. So there's like a homeschool group for all the families in the area that we attended, and I would perform 4 talent shows, or like one time they had a time where you could showcase your business and try and get business. And so my mom helped me make like business cards on it's not Vistaprint, but it was like a computer program, a lot like Vistaprint, super cheesy business cards. And they were like, my brother was like advertising like his car washing business, which, I mean, again, business, like we might have had 3 clients in a year, maybe, things like that. And so I got to perform in those scenarios, and then annoyed my siblings a lot. I have 6 siblings, and so had plenty of people, willing or not, to watch my magic. So more often than not willing. In fact, it became quite an issue. Grant, when your older sister has friends over, you ask them if they want to see a magic trick. You do not walk up and say, here, let me show you something. Right. And so, but my siblings they sacrificed their being annoyed, and it allowed me to practice a lot. And then at 13, I did my first restaurant to perform at was Sonic.
Really?
Okay.
I got a regular.
America's Drive-In. All right.
What's that?
I said America's Drive-In.
I know. It was crazy. I called every restaurant that I could find in the phone book. And some people said no, some people never called me back, some people didn't answer or whatever. And the last place that I called was Sonic, and they said, sure, about just performing. It was going to be table to table, but Sonic became car to car. And yeah, I just went out there. They didn't pay me. I did get tips, which was great. I mean, 13, I think I made like $70 on average. Wow. And usually it was ones. And so by the end of the day, my pockets were stuffed. because I just stick it in my pocket. And yeah, did that. I don't know exactly how long that was that I was performing. It wouldn't have been more than a year, but I don't even think it was that, because I don't remember doing it in the summer. I do remember doing it in the winter, and that was cold. The first time I realized I was allowed to go inside the Sonic building between performances because it was freezing. So the manager came out and was like, "Grant, come inside."
That's a big honor right there.
Yeah, I know. Nobody's allowed inside Sonic.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was good exposure to just all kinds of people, like audience management in just weird ways. I mean, it's kind of strange having somebody walk up to your car when you're at Sonic, except for the car hop. But I remember multiple situations. I remember going up to a window, and I learned how to approach a vehicle like intuitively. I was a mentalist then. I didn't even know it. Like learned really by trial and error that menu. If you walk up the wrong way, you'll scare somebody.
Right.
And maybe get shot. I was a skinny, awkward looking 13-year-old. So I don't think people were really scared of me, but learned how to approach the car even to where people could see me coming.
And they'd feel comfortable, right?
What's that?
And they'd feel more comfortable if they can see you coming, as opposed to just showing up and just, hey.
Right. Yeah. They still don't know, they still don't know what you're there for. But yes, at least they see you walking up. So I actually have not gone back through that story in a while. So that was actually helpful for me just to remember some of those things. Learning that I did this trick. I just learned it. I got it for Christmas. And it was a card through window. So David Blaine does this trick where he throws a deck of cards out the window. It's in his show from like the 90s, against the window, and there's a card stuck on the inside of the glass. Well, somebody I think saw that and was inspired to do a trick where you put the cards on a window and you pull one through. And it was, I got it for Christmas, and I thought it was so cool. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's perfect for cars. The car has a window, and the trick did go well, but I learned again, audience management. I learned that it was harder to do than I thought, because they have to select a card, they have to sign the card, you have to hand them the deck, have them roll up their window, and then spread the cards all over the window. And then you reach out. So it didn't go necessarily as smoothly as the trick was intended. It was made more for like, have a window and then hold the cards here, I'll go on the other side and then pull it through. But either way, it was just fun and really cool to learn what works, what doesn't, and just being able to amaze people.
I'm curious, when you say learn a new trick like that, typically, and I imagine it depends on the degree of difficulty, and there's probably a ton of variables to go into it, but how much time do you spend practicing the new tricks that you want to perform, and then how often do you have to keep practicing some of the routine tricks that you've done for years and years? What's the preparation like?
I think it depends on the trick, and it depends on what point in my life. I have for quite a while compared magic to an instrument. Once you learn the chords and you learn all the notes, you keep at it and you stay fresh, you can learn a new song fairly quickly. And even continuing that illustration, you can write a new song pretty easily. Or I say easily. With time, the more songs you write, the easier it is to write. So that kind of depends, but like that trick in particular, I might have been over eager. And so I probably felt more prepared to do it than I actually was. And so there were probably a lot of people who saw that trick performed and saw right through it. But but I was getting practice, and again, trial and error and learning. Okay, that didn't work. And so so that one, I don't know. I probably worked on it. Usually my process was learn a new trick, test it on my mom, mess up a lot, get really frustrated, be ready to either quit magic or not try that trick anymore. Luckily, she's an encouraging person, the daughter of my grandmother, that same grandmother I was talking about. Very encouraging and knows me well enough. I can hear her over and over and over still, the echo of, Grant, this happens every time. You get discouraged or you get frustrated, and then you just practice a little bit more and you get it. And so there were many times that I, again, probably would have stopped doing magic altogether, or that she, that I would have just given up on a certain trick. But I don't know, that one probably was like a couple weeks, a month of practice for my mom and then my family members. I can remember specific family members that if I could fool them, I knew I had it. There were certain ones that if they were like, wow, that's amazing, I'd think, yeah, well, that's what you always say. But others that would, that rarely did I get them to a frustrating degree. Like I would get kind of mad if I felt like I had it down and then do the trick for them, and then they go, oh yeah, I saw that, you did this. So anyway, but then usually I'd take it out into the public. But now, I honestly don't do a lot of new stuff now. I like, other than stuff that I write. And so whenever I write new stuff, again, it's kind of like writing a song. I've never written a song, so I can't assume that this is exactly the same process. But for me, if I can envision it, almost like in the process of writing it, I'm practicing it, but it's more like, oh, okay, so could I do it like this? No, that won't work. Okay, what about like this? Oh yeah, that's perfect. And then it's kind of like I've got the practice I need to now go do it. I mean, again, like as if I know that this is how it goes, but like if I were writing a song piece by piece, almost like, does G work? No, G doesn't work. What about C? Oh, that sounds good. Okay, so C. And again, it's like I know I can play a C, but as far as like in that sequence in a song.
Well, I can tell you that your analogy, I think, is pretty spot on. As a former songwriter for the amazing punk rock band Ruby Alexander, who also our lead bassist Sammy Gonzalez is joining us on this call, and we wrote probably 15 or 20 songs, classics, as you can imagine. And I think your analogy is dead on, because that's exactly what it is. It's trial and error, and you just kind of keep piecing with it. You have your outline of where you want to start and where you want to go. And then it's just that whole process of trying to figure out what really works throughout that song. And sometimes you get 75% and you come back and, you go back to 50 and then you keep moving forward, but eventually it all kind of flushes itself out.
Yeah. That's cool. I didn't know that you were in a band before. When was that?
Gosh, Sammy, how long ago was this?
So 6 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably been, I bet we probably wrapped up our musical career maybe 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah, it's been quite a while. And for a while there, it was a 3-piece. And then we lost our drummer because, drummers make a lot of noise in their houses, and then they have kids, and then they have to give up their drums. So that's kind of how it happens. Yeah. So then we pivoted over to a 2-piece. And so we were the Roman Candles for a while, and had some fun with that. And that was a lot of, we should get that band back together too. But
yeah, we should. It was one of those things where it was a hobby, but it was just a blast. It was playing Rockstar. And, we played some shows, and we learned early on that it was a lot easier to write our own music as opposed to try to cover other bands and then get compared with, hey, you don't sound like, Pearl Jam, or you don't sound like the Foo Fighters,
the Beatles,
or the Beatles. So let's write our own stuff so you can only compare us against ourselves. And so, it was a lot of fun, and we still talk about trying to get the band back together. So one of these days we'll look to do that.
That'd be awesome, man. That's so cool. I'll come open for y'all whenever you do that.
Oh, I'm pretty sure it'll be the other way around, Grant. We'll come and open for you.
But I have no experience opening for bands. I wasn't good enough for Luke Bryan, so you should be careful.
Well, we will promise to call you back anytime. Yeah, anytime. You know, it's funny you mentioned that about your, mentors and stuff. That's what Greg and I are very big on, that, like the mentors and the people that inspire us. And I think a common thread through a lot of the conversations that we've had, where the people sitting in your seat said that they've got somebody in their life, or they have a number of people in their life that kind of have guided and stewarded them along the way. Talk to me a little bit about that, about your inspirations, because obviously, for me, I'm a marketer and a creative, so I have like marketers and creatives and companies that I follow. And speaking of rock stars, they had people that they went on to, that they followed in their footsteps. Who were those inspirations for you?
Yeah. So there are a couple that I'll name. Some of them you'll recognize their names potentially, and then others that you won't. And so the first guy that I was talking about, that I sent that video, the footage from one of my shows to, who just said, "Yeah, keep doing what you're doing. You don't need to, cut out of college for this." His name is Devin Henderson, and he's still performing now. He's actually kind of shifted. He was the first person I saw do mentalism. And so I was just floored. Like, I was a magician, and my knowledge base was decent. At the time that I met him, I actually met him not long after the Sonic stuff, because not long, at age 14, 15, we moved to Kansas City, which is where he's from. So we met him through another friend. Yeah, so he was incredible. Now he's a comedian and motivational speaker. He dropped the mentalism thing. He now calls himself a recovering magician. And so, yeah, anyway, so that was one. He was the main mentor. I definitely have people around me now who are peers. I mean, it's just amazing. I've seen this in business. I've seen this in performing. And by business, I just mean the business side of what I do. I don't do anything else. This is my full-time job. Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy what another pair of eyes does. Like, it almost doesn't matter who it is. If you just have one other person, it's just crazy. I mean, I've been able to, I really, really love marketing. And I've been able to give marketing advice to people and help them a lot in their business. And it's stuff that I go, wait, I don't do that for mine. Why don't I, it's just outside looking in that you go, yeah, if you do this and this and this, you'll kill it, And so that's awesome. So I have friends, magicians, as well as just other people that I see on a regular basis.
Is there a famous mentalist? Like, is someone that's kind of at the tip of the spear?
And whether or not you've heard his name is yeah, it just kind of depends, but he is big. Darren Brown is his name.
I think he might have been on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know. So not Banachek, but they've both been on there.
Right.
I named Banachek, and he's got a red streak in his hair. And then Darren is bald. Okay. And Darren is phenomenal. Very, very talented. He's from the UK. Tip of the spear, so what's crazy is Darren, Americans, again, it's kind of hit or miss if they've heard of him. But in the UK, he's bigger than famous actors in the UK. Wow. From my understanding. Have either of you seen the show Sherlock?
Yes.
With Benedict Cumberbatch?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's hard to talk about this because it has to do with a major plot point of the show, so I won't give anything away. But So there's a point when someone puts John, they hypnotize John and they say sleep in a, there's a someone is hypothesizing how Sherlock pulled it off. Do you know what I'm referring to, Greg?
So I haven't seen the whole show. I've
Okay.
seen several episodes,
Okay.
but I'm not familiar with what you're talking about at the moment.
That's fine. I won't accidentally give something away for someone who watches it, because Sherlock is it's my favorite TV show, movie, like film related thing of all time. It's so well done. They planned way ahead everything. The last episode of the last season is tied to the first episode of the first season. So anyway, but Darren was in that episode. He just did a cameo, and everyone, again, watching in the UK, just lost their minds. Like, it was a bigger deal that he was on that show than like meeting Benedict Cumberbatch or whatever. So anyway, Darren's really good. Darren is definitely inspiring. He's inspired a lot of mentalists, because mentalism used to be really good, and then it had a stint where it was just like, think of something, okay, this is what you're thinking, and just not much. It just wasn't fun. It was amazing, but it wasn't fun. And so Darren took it to a whole new level, but he just said, like, if the way you describe a mentalist is, well, he told me things that I already know, then like, there's
no awe, there's no excitement in that,
right. So yeah, he's incredible, and again, definitely an inspiration. Not someone I know personally, but he's somebody that I follow, and kind of try to imitate without stealing. But yeah, so Darren, like I say, Devin, and then there are a few others that have just kind of inspired me along the way. Jim Monroe, he used to do a show called The Maze. There's a guy named Drew Worsham. He's now a pastor down in San Antonio, I think. Brock Gill is another one. Those three are all Christians, and just the way that they present their shows, I've always had a lot of respect for. But yeah, those are some of the big ones that are, again, kind of like, I've just from a distance enjoyed being able to watch. And then the friends that I know personally here in the DFW Metroplex, it's just so invaluable to be able to bounce ideas off of and stuff. My wife and I want to correct something. I don't know if you need to cut this out or if I'll just correct it. We'll just pretend that I didn't say I don't write new stuff very often. That's not true at all. I do write new stuff quite a bit. I'm always kind of formulating new ideas. I don't know why I even said that, but my wife and I we started a new show. It's called S'more Magic. It's an in-person, socially distanced show outside, back patio. We provide the fire pit, the blankets, a space heater, everything to make sure people are comfortable but safe. And that was probably the most fun we've had writing a show, and we just finished writing that show. So again, I don't know why I said I don't write stuff. Maybe because I just finished writing something and I feel like, okay, we're gonna push hard and refine this show now, and that's probably where that came from. So,
Grant, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, and really kind of honing in on the mentalism, and it kind of alludes back to something that you said when we first started talking, that it's really studying human behavior. So can you, without spilling your secrets or, a lot of the things that go into because as someone who's seen your shows, there literally has been 50 times where my mouth drops and I'm just like, how did he do that? And I know there's some type of science or human behavior or just things that you've done prepared for behind it, but just can you tell a little bit about the work you've done and how that really allows you to be able to excel as a mentalist?
Yes, and I will clear the record real quick. I am very specific about my show, that I don't lie in my show. It's just honestly, part of it has to do with being a Christian, but I know magicians who say, well, it's part of the, like, you're coming as an audience, you're kind of complicit in the lie. It's not real. And so I don't take issue with magicians who do lie in their show and say, I'm going to take this coin, I'm going to place it in that hand. That may not be the truth, but those kinds of things. So I do say in the show, because I don't want to mislead anybody to think that I'm doing something that I'm not. I have learned to pay attention to details about you that most people miss. So that does mean the body language and the face expressions and those kinds of tells. But the other tells that I refer to, again, just to go back on that wording I use is very specific intentionally, that I've learned to pay attention to details that most people miss. And so that includes, if you open up your wallet when I'm standing nearby and I happen to spot your birthday on your driver's license, that is paying attention to something that most people miss. So it is, it's that. And then, there's influence and things like that going on in the show. And so again, I don't want to spoil the fun. Obviously, if I just told people what things I'm paying attention to, then the show won't be any fun. So usually in the shows, I just kind of leave it at that, because it's because then it's like, okay, now I'm not lying to you. I'm not some psychological genius. And now from here, I'm not going to tell you what I'm paying attention to anymore. And then I tell you again things like what you've seen, Greg. But I can actually give you an example of like the psychological side, which I think is really interesting. And actually, I can't do this without you two in the same room. So I'll just tell you what, like, if we were in a room together, I can tell you what I would do, and you can try this on somebody. It's a really cool thing, just psychologically. So there's a lie detection game that you can play. You have two people, or even three people, and you give one of them just an object. It's not of consequence what object, just anything. And you turn your back and you tell somebody, I guess you could set it on the table, you tell somebody to grab that object. And then everybody holds their hands out. And the object is for you to guess who has it. You also, in the case of two people, you also ask that they choose a character. So one of them is going to lie. The other is going to tell the truth. And so in this case, let's just pretend that it's you two, Sammy and Greg. And so what you would do is you turn around. So somebody has it. That doesn't make them the liar. So, either one of them could be the liar, but one of them is the liar. One of them is the truth teller. And then you simply look at each of them and you warn them ahead of time. You say, I'm going to ask you if you have the object. And again, the liar needs to lie to me and the truth teller needs to tell the truth. And so then as you ask, it's so cool. So as you ask them, you, first of all, just the way that it works out, both of them will have the same answer. The liar and the truth teller will either both of them say yes or both of them will say no, which is, that doesn't give you anything. So what you watch for are two things. One, when you tell them, okay, the question I'm going to ask is, do you have the ring or whatever? You're watching to see who's going, okay, because telling the truth is easy, right? So you don't have to think about what your answer is going to be if you're the one telling the truth. And then, but with the liar, again, like most times they'll think for a second. Maybe they won't look up. Some people know that maybe you're watching for that. So they'll kind of, like maybe their eyes become a little more focused or they'll squint a little bit. You're looking for the person who looks like they have to take a second to think about it. So that's the first thing. And then the second is you're reading the tells of the liar in that instance. And then you ask, as you ask them, okay, so do you have it? Yes. Okay, Greg, do you have it? Yes. You are watching for the person who looks at the other. Interestingly, the truth teller, like 95% of the time, will look at the other person when they answer. And the person lying tries to maintain eye contact so that they don't look suspicious, which is in fact suspicious. So anyway, it's just an example, but it's a really cool way to be able to detect that. I think the truth teller looks because even though you know what they're gonna say, you're kind of like, okay, how well are they gonna lie? You know, but the truth is just boring to the liar. They're just like, oh well, I mean, that's, you know, I know what they're gonna say. So, but that's just an example. So then you can narrow it down to who's got it and who's lying, who's telling the truth. So, yeah. So that's like a simple example. Would you like to see one that I can actually demonstrate for you?
Absolutely.
Okay. So Sammy, because you and I, Greg and I have met before. And well, Sammy, we haven't met before, right?
We've met just in passing at Day One Dallas.
At Day One. Okay. I was gonna say that was the only time I thought, but we haven't really had any extensive conversation. It was literally like, hey, great to see you, or whatever. Right. Okay. So so I'll do this for you just because of that. There's less context, less relationship. I mean, if I tell Greg a number of things about him, he probably wouldn't be surprised because we know each other. Again, telling you things that you already know. So I'm gonna do this. I have some cards here, and they're just numbered cards. So I'm going to, let's see if I can actually get my table in view. Can you see? Yeah. Okay. You'll just barely be able to see this, but that's okay. I'm only setting the cards down right here. Okay. So I'm going to go through the cards like this. And as I do, you just say switch. You can say it as many times as you want, and I'll switch them as basically, you'll see. But I'll go through, you just say switch as many times as you want and whenever you want.
Switch.
Okay, that's one.
Switch.
Okay. We'll go back through since I'd gone through most of them already, but we'll do it again.
Switch. Switch.
Okay, so that's the last one. Okay, so and then lastly, I'm gonna deal down some cards just face down, and as I do that, you just tell me to stop somewhere, and when I do, I'm gonna flip the balance of the cards over. That'll make more sense as we go, but just tell me when you want me to stop.
Stop.
There, you want one more.
One more.
One more. So this one will go here, and we'll flip those over. And just to make sure they're thoroughly mixed, we'll do that one more time. So I'll leave everything in the same position it's in, but you just tell me when you want me to stop.
Stop.
Okay, and we'll flip those over like that. So, Sammy, this is random. This is how we know it's not set up, because do you have your keys on you?
I don't. No.
Are they easy to get to?
Yeah. I'll have to step out of frame real quick, but yeah.
Okay, if you can get them, that'd be great.
All right, hold on one second.
While he's doing that, Greg, his headphones are out, so let's just plan a prank. Just kidding. No, this is actually something new. I didn't preface with that. This is something I'm testing out, so it's a dangerous place to do this, but we're not at Sonic anymore, so we'll see if we can get this to.
This is not Sonic. This is much more intense, and the ramifications, Grant.
Yeah, Luke Bryan is watching. He's hoping to fail.
We're sending this to Eric Church, Luke Bryan, and Garth Brooks and Tim McGraw. So this is big.
Perfect. Okay, so Sammy, you got your keys?
I do.
Can you hold them up? Okay, so I'm gonna pin you for a second. Do you have any like house keys on there?
One.
Just one. Okay. Well, I was gonna say you could pick any one, but Sammy, you can pick any house key you have on there.
I'll choose this one.
That one. Okay. Wow, this is gonna blow your mind. Okay, so Sammy, I told Greg this as you were off screen, but this is brand new. This is testing this for the first time. So. Can you hold so I can see the ridges of the key, just like right up to the camera? Yeah, and turn it sideways. No, sorry, like landscape. Landscape, not portrait. There we go. Okay. So I need to see the teeth. Yeah. Okay, so you couldn't see me, but these have I haven't done anything to these since you've been gone. Okay. So you shuffled these sort of from a distance. Mm-hmm. Can you read that out loud?
Two. 8. 1. 8.
Do the numbers 2818 mean anything to you?
Yeah.
What's significant about those numbers?
That's my home address.
That's your house number?
Yeah.
It's 2818. And that's not mind reading. You had the card shuffled and I didn't do anything to them after that.
What?
What? Yeah,
So,
it is.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me try something new.
Oh, my face is like red, like I'm laughing so hard because it's mind blowing.
If you need to blur that out or whatever in the video, then you can. I figured since we don't have your street name or your zip, then you're safe. But
that's all good. That was awesome. I'm gonna need a moment on that one, Greg.
Dude, it's like while you're taking a moment, I'm gonna mess this up, but at Day One Dallas, Grant was doing a performance, and Grant, I'll mess this up, but I'll at least share with the audience the awe is you were talking and you were getting clues from people, and you had I think a notepad, and you had a word that was written on the notepad, and you were going to turn it around and say, was this the word that you were thinking of or that you had or whatnot? And I want to say that maybe you intentionally had the word wrong, but then you asked a woman in the crowd if she would stand up, and she stood up, and you said, would you pull your sleeve up? And she pulled her sleeve up, and on her arm was like a tattooed, I guess a fake tattoo, but it was the word on her arm. And she looked down and she jumped out of like, how did this word get on my arm? And I literally, I screamed like a girl. I was like, how did he do that? It was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. And it just so happens that I know her mother. And so apparently they spent like the last month trying to figure out how you did this. And they're like, and we have no idea. It's incredible.
That's awesome.
Oh, that was awesome.
No, you got it pretty much right. Somebody was thinking of a word and I tried to guess it, and then it wound up on the word that this girl was thinking of ended up on her arm. So
yeah. So
gosh, that was awesome. Thanks, Grant. That was really cool. That was really cool.
So yeah, and I realized a question I was answering, but in very long form earlier that I was meant to answer, Greg, or not Greg, Sammy, you asked me about just about a little bit of the journey of getting to where I am. And I'll just in much shorter form say all those different things of performing for all those years. One, I got lots of practice, but two, one of the things I look back on and I'm just amazed by, and I think God really used to provide a lot of work, is the word of mouth. Like I generated, I don't know how many tens of thousands of people who knew about me, and then maybe they're like, oh wow, I remember Grant when he was 7. He's doing that for a living now. And so it's funny, like obviously from advertising and from I do things like going down to the so Sundance Square in Fort Worth on a regular basis, just to perform for people. So things like that to get word out, that sure that does help. But I think a big one was the fact that I've been doing it for so long that people either know that it's what I'm doing, or when they see it, they go, oh yeah, we got to hire him, because he's still doing it. I hope he's good. But anyway, so that's the answer I really didn't give, but was sort of getting.
Sorry, you were just too busy blowing my mind. That's all it was. So,
great question for you. When you're performing and you perform for all ages, families, you perform for corporations, what do you enjoy most? Is it when you make a smile on that kid's face, when you do something they're just like, wow, how did they make that happen? Just that joy? Or is it when you have that 50-year-old guy that the whole time sitting here going, this is a waste of my time, this guy is just a bunch of crap, and then you do something and you see his mind blown? Which one do you get a bigger kick out of?
Man. I feel like Yeah, I feel like I feel like the smiles, like regardless of age, that has been my recent focus. I've had different points in my career where I've wanted certain things. Sometimes it was just point simply made that, like, just wanted to be in front of people, like just wanted the spotlight. And then it transitioned to I want to amaze people, and right now I'm at the point of I want them delighted. Like I obviously want their mind blown, but I want them to, like, that's the word that I'm aiming for now, is delighted. And so whether it's a kid or a 50-year-old, but like I want to crack that 50-year-old, but not because because he's like being stubborn.
Right.
Like sometimes those people, if they are amazed, it actually makes them more mad, just because they're like, they're like, no, I can't figure it out, and this is dumb. But I much rather take a kind of more indirect approach, even just to let them know, like, I'm not here to make you. I want to fool you, but I'm not trying to make you look the fool. And that, like, that's really really important to me. And again, the delight, and honestly, like, working to make the show as much about the audience as possible. Obviously, I'm on stage. Obviously, it's my show, but I want to make it as much about them. And so that's actually our most recent show. More than half of it is the audience is able to read minds in ways that you can't explain. So that I was trying to that was one of my challenges, was could I do almost an entire show where they read each other's minds, and it's just fun then, it's not let's stump the magician, it's they just get to have fun and enjoy it.
It's interesting because that's like as a marketer myself, it's one of the things that we always try and do, and it's something that in the book that we talk a lot about as well. That Greg wrote a piece about me. It's something that I adopted a long time ago. It's like I'm always looking for ways that I can provide value or provide help to other people, and it sounds like that's what you're doing as well, helping those people have that, delighted. I think that's a great word, like, or being amazed or having a good time, like myself. I mean, I'll never forget that. That's amazing. I can't wait to tell my wife and kids about it. Like, and they're in the other room, I want to flag them down, be like, look what you just did. But I think that goes back. I think that makes you, and from the performances I've seen from you, so relatable to just, other than like, David Blaine's of the world and stuff, where we watch him on TV, and there, to me, I love everything that he does, but it's also not too relatable to me because I haven't seen it firsthand. But I feel that come through in your performance as well, that like, even like when I've seen you work with the kids, like they get so excited, they get a lot out of it. So that's something I've always appreciated about what you put into your shows.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. That's what I'm aiming for, but it's only with time that I'll know if I'm actually getting that outcome. So
Yeah.
Grant, I'm curious, as you look to the future, this is kind of a two-part question. Where do you envision your path, in the next 10, 20 years or so? And then how do you think just the business of entertainment is going to change, with whether it's how the world is adapting to new technology, or how people are changing, where they get their entertainment? We're transitioning from a culture that used to only go to the movies, and now we're streaming the movies in our living room.
yeah.
So I guess, how do you see your vision, and how are you planning to kind of adopt to kind of fit into that model, or blaze your own path?
Yeah. So I have always struggled with the 5-year plan or the 10-year plan question. I think mainly because I love what I do. And so, when I got out of college, I was with a bunch of friends, and somebody asked that, what's your 5-year plan? And everybody was answering, and it's kind of going around the circle and come back to me. And I was like, 5-year plan, like to do what I'm doing? I don't know, and so, I mean, there are longer, there are things, that I want to accomplish within my career. But yeah, as far as changing climate and atmosphere, and like the way, like you say, the way people pursue or get entertainment, or even food, I mean, like, just with everything going on right now, it's like people are going out to restaurants and things like that. But even that, from all appearances, Grubhub is doing very well.
Right.
This is a paid sponsorship by Grubhub. Okay, fine. Favor Uber Eats. We will be unbiased. But yeah, it's been weird because I mean, I've been doing mostly virtual shows for 2020. And it has actually been 2020 was a really hard year as far as shows are concerned. We made it again. It would be another hour of conversation or more of all the things that God did in the course of 2020, ways that like we shouldn't have made it. But I did not have to look for a different job. I got to keep doing what I was doing. So I'm doing virtual shows mostly. I'm still doing in person. And so, I mean, I plan to do that as long as it's needed. I really enjoy actually doing the virtual. I didn't think that I would, because the first one we did was Facebook Live. And so we couldn't even see anybody, it's just me performing for a camera. And as we've already talked about, I want it to be about them. I don't want, I'm not going to enjoy or do a good performance of me dancing with some, scarves or something and watch this is cool. Okay, let me show you another thing. Imagine that you were to pick a card, because you can't, and put
right.
it in. And so we did like comments, and we had some people FaceTime in. But even that, like the delay time on Facebook is like 40 seconds from the moment I say something to someone hearing it at home, which is rough.
Yeah.
Okay? Like if I say like, hey, okay, somebody comment below and name a card. Waiting. And you're just waiting for all that. So so I even that show I enjoyed more than I thought I would, but it was definitely hard. So, yeah. So for virtual, it's still not the same as in person, which is why we started doing the S'more Magic thing, because we wanted. We were just thinking like, okay, how can we do something like this? The way it truly should be enjoyed is in person. And so how can we do something? It was really my wife's idea. Something that people will say feel safe to attend, but where they can get the in-person experience too. And then the virtual is available to everybody else who might be nervous about going out, or like I've had a lot of companies that had done like client events or like team buildings or whatever. Those kinds of things, whether it's like that they're now all remote, so they don't see each other, or whatever the case may be. So for now, my plan is to keep doing that, to continue doing virtual. And other than that, there's not a lot that I foresee. It's not necessarily maybe the greatest answer to your question. That is another thing I've had to learn, to humble myself a little bit. You ask a question and I feel like, okay, I need to know my answer to that question. If I'm a true professional, but that's kind of what I've got at this point.
Now, hey, if that's your sincere answer and that's the truth, man, that's the right answer. And I actually appreciate, how you really kind of live in the moment. And I think a lot of people, while it's important to to plan and have ideas and thoughts about where you're going, goals and aspirations. I think so many of us struggle with anxiety and depression and fear, because we're so focused on a future that we're not necessarily enjoying the moment, and we're not appreciating where we're at. And then ultimately, I think for people that are believers, trusting in God with where we're at and where we're going. And I think that's most likely probably a big reason why you excel with that, is because of your faith. And I think that's a very, very cool thing.
Yeah, it's again, I have to say there are definitely things that that we've seen God do even in the new year of 2021, where I'm currently working to just make sure my life is more structured, more organized. It's probably shocking to hear that an entertainer is not. I don't thrive on structure. Or actually, no, I do thrive on structure. That's what I've been learning. I don't naturally tend towards structure. I like being able to, like you're saying, live in the moment, and that there are benefits to that for sure. But learning even just to sacrifice what I want or my ideal schedule, meaning not one, for the sake of my family, and again, just working hard. And over and over and over again in my life, I've seen how God has provided shows. Like, I'll work hard in a given day. Maybe I'll work really hard on an email campaign or a post on social media promoting a new show or whatever. Or like, trying to get bookings. And then I'll get 3 emails the next day with booking requests from people who did not see that campaign or like that I didn't send an email to, that they're like, hey, we saw you a year ago at this event, and we were just thinking about hiring you. And it's just amazing to see, like, okay, God, like, I don't produce, I work, and I do things, I do what I do for your glory. And then you always, like, he'll even kind of like show, like, yeah, I know, like, you did that campaign, that's cool, good work, but I'm going to provide something that you can't even take credit that it had anything to do with that particular effort. And then a year later, I'll be working on something else. Be like, yeah, there was an email we got like a year ago, and yeah, now we're on with you. So, anyway, it's a bit of a tangent, but it's just a really cool thing I just recently been dwelling on. So, yeah.
Love it. Well, as we start to kind of come to the end of our conversation, we have some questions that Sammy and I like to ask all of our guests. But before we do that, I wanted to ask you, I was really impressed with that trick that you did on Sammy. You have any others up your sleeve right now that you want to show us?
Yeah. So speaking of paying attention to details that most people miss, I tell people often, I'm not the only one who can do that. I bet everyone who tunes in to my virtual show or in-person show can also do it, whether they have to put their mind to it, they're still capable, or just do it naturally. So Greg, I'll just ask you, did you notice this before I pointed it out?
I did.
Okay. Do you know what it is?
I do not.
Okay. Well, I'll show you in just a second. So just imagine a deck of cards. Do you play cards, Greg?
Sparingly.
Okay. So just for everyone watching this, something that you can observe about Greg just in the way he answered sparingly, we all know that he's Baptist now. Just kidding. I'm Baptist.
I did grow up Baptist. So
yeah,
there you go.
And so that's why we don't play cards. My hands are actually like burning touching these. Okay, Greg. So yeah, imagine a deck of cards there in your hands. Do you know the names of the cards? Is why I actually asked if you play
most
cards.
of, yeah, I did.
Okay. So don't do the 9 of diamonds, but any other card that you want. What if you could just pull one out of your invisible deck of cards there in front of you, and just don't do the ace of spades because it's at everybody's hands. What card would it be?
Let's do the King of Hearts.
King of Hearts. Okay. So random choice. We didn't talk before the show, and I didn't tell you to name King of Hearts or anything like that.
That is correct. We did not talk.
So this right here, I'm going to try and do this as fairly as possible since we're not in person. But this is a playing card, and it's unlike the rest. It's blue on the back. Would you agree that if this were the King of Hearts, that would be pretty crazy? That'd
be pretty surprising, Grant. Yes.
Yep, it's the King of Hearts. Greg, if you can't trust me, we don't have trust. If you have to see this card to believe it, then,
Grant, I'm going to need to see it to believe it.
Greg, if we don't have trust, what do we have?
I guess if we don't have trust, we have untrust.
There you go. That is the only blue card in the pack there. So, King of Hearts. There we go.
Like, again, just like, and those are the simple ones that he does. Like, that's absolutely incredible. How? And the funny thing was, when you first sat down before we started recording, I've noticed that, and I was like, "What is that? Is that like a light switch?"
I thought it was a thermostat or something. I couldn't tell
And
what
then
it
I
was.
meant to ask you what it was, and then we started talking, and I forgot all about it.
Yeah, that's my light switch cover. Is I just use a playing card. That's how into my craft I am.
Wow. It's times like that where I don't know the proper reaction. I just like giggle like a little school kid, and then all night long I'll be thinking about that as well.
How do you do that? I don't get it. Well, I guess going into our final questions, Grant, as we start kind of wrapping up the end of our conversation, how did you do that? Just kidding.
Right.
Just kidding.
Tell me exactly how.
Guess that question.
How did you do that? But again, these are questions that we ask everybody that we have as guests on the show, and so they're subjective and they're just open answered questions. But during your life, can you share one of your favorite lessons learned in terms of self-development and growth? Something that's really stayed with you, or motivated you, or really helped you to excel in your life?
Yeah, I can. Let me think. Yeah, I'll honestly one of them is one of those recent lessons. But is just the importance, like the importance of hard and consistent work. Again, like I know even like the example I gave where it's like I can never take credit. Like I know God is the one who provides. I'm aware that somebody reaches out and says, "Hey, we saw you a year ago." Some may say, "Well, yeah, I mean that person saw you a year ago. That's why they reached out." But it's more so the timing that blows my mind. But like those things do continue to show time and time again that that you never know when or how that hard work will pay off.
Mm-hmm.
And so just staying like consistent in that, and like including my dad taught me this, so maybe it's not a new lesson in one sense. My dad was somebody who he's still alive. I'm saying in terms of just like as I was growing up, like he was like always stressed the importance of doing the things, especially the things that I don't feel like doing. I'm always excited to learn a new trick or to work on a new trick, and that is an important thing. But the like doing bookkeeping, like I don't do my own accounting, but just keeping up with expenses and making sure that I'm categorizing on a weekly basis, like those things that are just kind of drag, doing those weekly so that at the end of the year, I don't have to spend a 36-hour period just working on those so I can get my taxes ready. And I'm really sharing three things, but this one kind of ties into that. The fact that you should love what you do, not do what you love. I have a lot of people come up to me and say, "Man, it's so cool. Like you're doing what you love. That's how it should be." And I always feel weird. I don't ever correct anybody. I just say thank you. But I always feel weird because I actually totally disagree with that. I do think it's a huge blessing that I get to do what I love, but you can find reasons to hate every job. Mm-hmm. And so that's been a huge thing for me to again, like doing the things that I don't really enjoy about it, but also like, I don't know, you're just like cultivating it. I mean, a lot of it is outlook and perspective.
Love that.
but yeah, just the fact that I can find a reason to hate doing magic if I want to. It's always easier looking at what someone else does and thinking like, man, I wish that was my job. And so anyway, that's one that it's just been really important. There have been seasons of my life where if I'm not careful or if I hadn't, I have a very optimistic personality naturally. But if I hadn't continued and pressed through, then I might not be doing magic anymore. If it wasn't more of the perspective of I'm gonna enjoy this. Maybe there's a particular client or a particular event that isn't going as well, or I'm tired or whatever, and just like pursuing that again, like giving them delight, and I turn out to love it in the end.
There's an entire chapter in the book. It's all about attitude, and it's one of my favorite chapters because I think you could take a lot from it. And I reread it constantly. It's on my desk behind me, but it might even be bookmarked to that chapter because it's a very important chapter to me personally as well, just for the reasons you were saying. So I love that advice. Another question that we have for you is, and this might kind of piggyback off what we just said, but can you share some advice that has stuck with you over the years? We kind of touched on it a little bit there too, but
I mean, if I can think of something else, then I will. I mean, there's tons of things that I've learned and advice. So I'll see if I can think of something else. If not, I'll just borrow what I just talked about anyway.
Sure.
Let's see.
Grant, I'm thinking of an answer right now. Can you read my mind and tell me what it is?
No, my powers have weakened, and I still have to get some more pixie dust before I can do anything. Let's see. I mean, yeah, it's a different thing, but we have touched on it a little bit already. But just the importance of knowing it's not about you, or it's not about me, rather. I just, again, like I haven't made it in the sense like that I have got this down. Like I said earlier, like not really knowing if I have an answer to the 10-year, in 10 years, what do I see? But like just I have definitely struggled with in the course of my career making it about me, and I mean it's easy to, like, I'm on stage and the spotlight is on me, but you'll and I don't want my motivation to just be, well, it's strategically better if I don't make it about me. But like that's the way it happens, is you actually seem to progress further when you don't make it about yourself. Again, which is just interesting. Like, again, I think if you're fixated on that and you make it like, okay, our marketing strategy is don't make it about us, and you focus on that too much, you're going to make it about you. But if you kind of just forget about that, then that's where it seems to kind of, I don't know, it just works better.
And it's kind of like what you talked about earlier about when you define the why. And I love what you said earlier about you want to bring delight to people. Mm-hmm. And when that's your why, I'd imagine that really helps you to take the onus off yourself, but really be able to focus on others. And, whether it's incorporating how you glorify God through your work and your life, but also using your strength to delight others as a part of doing that. That's a pretty cool thing you do, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. And I wanted to just clarify, again, it's still something I'm working on. There are definitely times where I leave and I'm even like conflicted on my own motives. Like, did I do that because I thought I would look really cool? Or did I do that because I wanted it to be, them to be amazed and to have fun? And so I just say to clarify that, because I feel like it's super easy to talk about things once you've learned them and be like, well, I used to, whatever, but I don't anymore. But you guys really need to work on that.
Right.
It's something I'm constantly working even to sort through my own motives and and just knowing like that's what I want to work on all the time is not making it about me and giving the delight.
Well, Sammy can attest to this too, that, and we write about this in our book, that so much of what we've learned is exactly what you just said. We haven't learned it and conquered it, and now we've moved on. It's a constant effort.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to fall backwards if you loosen yourself up and you allow yourself to go back to bad habits. But there's certain things that for some of us, we're gonna have to work on consistently for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is. Go ahead, Sammy. I think I jumped in on you there.
No, I was going to say two things. Is one is that's very consistent with a lot of the things you've said, and I'll say the second part of what I was about to mention for our little recap that we do. But then, so yeah, I'll save that next part because I'll save it for the recap. But Greg, go ahead and ask the third question.
Yeah. So speaking of,
before you do that, are you gonna remember where you are, Greg?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, I was just gonna say you teed me up for this, so I'm gonna say this. I was looking for a place to interject this, and Greg, what you're talking about, saying like, we haven't made it. The things we're talking about in the book, it'll be a lifetime of doing it. That's evidence. Sammy, you mentioned like that you have it on your desk and that you're reading it. And I don't take that in any sense of like that you have a big head that you're like reading your own book. I actually think that's really, really cool that the two of you evidence that you were taking your own advice, that you don't write the book and then pass it off and you never touch it again, but that you're looking through it still. So I just wanted to say that. It's really cool.
That's something that means a lot. I mean, there's a lot of work that went into it, but very much I'll go ahead and clarify what I was going to say too, is that it's very much the mentality. I used to get mad at myself when I would find myself regressing or slipping back into bad habits. And it took me a long time to really understand that falling back into bad habits or falling back into a different way of life, like if I'm very regimented now, but like when I used to not be, like I would fall back in, I'd be mad at myself. It's like, okay, now it's a struggle to get back to where I wanted to go. Now it's part of the process. Like it's like, now I know that roadmap. Now I know how to get back to where I'm going. And so it's actually a little bit easier to get back on track. And then I actually applaud myself, I pat myself on the back for being able to get back to where I was faster, remembering that I need to go, then recognizing that I have fallen off my path. So that is something, and that's the second half of what I was going to say. So, but I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, it was actually encouraging. Yesterday, I was a part of a business meeting, and the presenter was talking about, what motivates people and where joy and those things come from in people's lives. And, for people listening that aren't familiar with the book, The Pursuit of Growth, it's all about having active progress and growth goals in what we consider the 11 key areas of life, right? Things like your attitude, your faith, your professional work. And again, it's not striving for perfection, but it's active progress. And this individual was talking, said that she was citing some psychology study from Stanford that said these psychologists have finally figured out that people's joy in life comes from purpose and having active progress towards the things that matter in life. And I was in the background just like going, hello, I didn't need a Stanford study. It's common sense. And quite honestly, if you just open your Bible, it's everything about our book is basically based on the truth and the wisdom that God shares through the course of what he's given us in the Bible. But that's another story for another time. But Grant, the last question we have before we do our takeaways is, it's going to a question that or kind of a subject area that you're maybe not so comfortable with, but I'm talking about 10 years from now. So oftentimes people are always asked the question, if you could go back in time and talk to yourself 10 years ago, what advice would you share with yourself? Well, let's flip that. What if you right now had the opportunity to talk to yourself 10 years from now? What would you tell yourself? What would you tell your future self today?
So present Grant telling future Grant.
That's correct.
Got it. funny question. I feel like as a mentalist too, it's like that should be right up my alley, 10 years or looking in the future. But telling myself, I feel like I would be basically almost as like a checking in of like, did I continue consistent in the things that I was growing in, and then like, as I picked up things along the way, adding those two and not dropping off like consistent habits. Specifically, I'm just thinking of like, again, like going back to like those things that I don't want to do. But the only other thing I can think right now is that for some reason 10 years, I've been doing it for doing magic for more than 10 years, but for some reason 10 years in the future has this feeling for me of like that it could be easy to be at a point. Again, I've had multiple of these in my career, like every 3 or 4 years, thinking like, is this what I want to do? Like, is this like, should I do something else? So I don't know. I'm imagining myself in 10 years, 10 years from January 20th, 2021, being at a point of like, yeah, maybe I should do something else. I'm probably not any good at this. People probably don't enjoy what I'm doing. So it probably would even just be the encouragement to continue in maybe using my mom's encouragement and saying, that when you get here, that you're hours from or a day from being like, oh yes, I love doing this, and not in like a cocky sense, like you're good at this. People enjoy what you do. Stop. I mean, I don't know if your question is intended to do this, but it certainly causes me to really be telling me this now. And so, but like, stop looking at what other magicians are doing for the purpose of saying that you're not doing it, telling yourself that you're not doing it right or you can't do this. There are plenty of people who are craving and needing what you offer. That there's plenty to go around. You don't need to look around and worry that someone else is stealing your clients or your opportunities or whatever.
Very well said. Love that.
Absolutely.
Well, Sammy, do you want to jump in? So this is the point, Grant, where Sammy and I like to share typically 3 takeaways that we really resonated with during the conversation. So I'll let you go first.
All right. So the very first one that I recognized was a theme throughout everything you mentioned. It's a question about like how long and how long it took, how long you've been doing it. But you mentioned 10 years. And then it was all about that you were seeking out the performances and that you did the work. And that was the common thread, I think, that I picked up throughout all of our conversation, which goes back to your number one question we just talked about, was that hard and consistent work has always paid off. Maybe not now, maybe not later, maybe it manifests itself in some other ways, but that was a very common thread. And that's what a lot of people don't necessarily put a lot of stock into, I believe, is that hard work that comes behind all the accolades, is the success, or even the small success that you may have, or the big success you may have. So that's a key thing. So again, it's great to hear you say that as well. I love the fact about your another set of eyes, just getting someone else's perspective on it. A lot of people that we've interviewed have used the mentor analogy that I spoke of. So having you say that too, especially as someone that's so attuned to details, to see someone else and to have someone else looking at that just reaffirms that for me, that's just another important skill set. And then the last one for me is just making it about them. So giving more to them, and it's about the audience. I thought that was just a really good key factor that you continued throughout your entire theme. Your advice was, it's not about me. So it's a great lessons there, 1, 2, and 3, that I think that are going to really resonate with people as they watch this interview. So thanks for sharing those.
Yeah, thank
Yeah, and my three, the first one that I wanted to share was I love your quote, pay attention to details most people miss. I think that applies to our personal lives, our family lives, our communities, our professional work. And, when you said that, it really got me thinking, almost to the point where I stopped paying attention to our interview and started thinking and really honing in on how I can really do a better job of that. So I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
And two, I think, of course, it resonated throughout the entire conversation was how much you value your faith and how much your faith has been the pillar of your family life, of your professional life. And I love that you have that trust and you understand that trials and challenges are going to come. I mean, this past year was a great example of that. And then where we're heading into 2021 will continue to bring, challenges of all different shapes and sizes. And the fact that you really have trust in your faith to be able to give you that guidance, that momentum, and that confidence is, I think, inspiring. So I appreciate you sharing that throughout our conversation. And then the third thing that I love what you said, and I use the word love intentionally, is love what you do, don't do what you love. And there's actually in part of our book on professional work, we talk about so many people make the mistake that they think their work owes them passion. How many times you hear people say, "I don't like my job because it doesn't give me passion"?
Mhm.
Well, we will argue that it's not your job's duty to give passion to you. It's your job to give passion to your work.
Mhm.
Now, that does not mean that you shouldn't seek to do things that you love,
Yeah.
but we all don't just wake up one day and whether it's we graduate from high school or we graduate from college or whatever road we take and then just end up in the job that's our Disney fairy tale.
Yeah.
But you can take any job, and like you mentioned, you can find any reason why you hate a job. You can always find, with the right perspective, the reasons why you love being able to work, and you can really frame yourself to be able to give enthusiasm and give passion to your work. It's amazing when you do that how your value of that work changes, and that job that you quote unquote hated takes on a different meaning to your life. And so that's something that we really, really encourage. So I love the fact you basically said the exact same thing with just a few different words, and I appreciate that. So fantastic.
Yeah. Man, thank y'all. That's really cool. I love that y'all do that. I yeah, that's just cool to hear at the end some of the things that I hadn't necessarily noticed, all of those things kind of combined, or even the theme that threads through them. So thank you guys for having me on here, but for doing this segment at the end. I have people told y'all that's other guests that you've had on that's super helpful.
Yeah, yeah. Other people have said like, "Oh, I mean, there's been times where people are like, I didn't even know I said that," um, and then sometimes it's the little things. I mean, I know we were talking to uh, one person one time, and one of mine was just a word. It was yet. They kept talking about this and that and this and that, and at the end they just kept saying yet. Like, I haven't done that yet, and that just really resonated with me. And so that was one of my key takeaways, was just yet. It was just remind myself to say the word yet at the end of the sentence if it's a negative. So yeah, it's but yeah, we appreciate you saying that too, because trust me, we get so much out of this, and you sharing so much. I've got a page of notes and great stories that I can't wait to tell everyone about as well.
You'll just send me your notes. You wrote like a motivational speech for me, so you can send those to me, and
It's like chicken scratch, so I'll summarize them.
that'll work. Was that guest that you had on? Was it Alexander Hamilton?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Awesome. Well, Sammy, you want to give Grant the opportunity to
Yeah.
promote himself a little bit?
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite parts of the show, and as we wrap up and come to a close here, because I know we kept you way over time, but this is your opportunity for that shameless plug. Those tell people where they can find you via social media, to buy tickets. Do you have a show coming up, and how can they get a hold of you? And we'll put all this in the show notes. And then also at the end of the video, we'll also like link to, or we'll have the address and stuff. So you just tell us what you have and I transcribe it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is time for my musical number. Wow, my show is here. And yeah, so best places are, so my website, which you can get to most things. I talked about SEO, and then you'll see that I have some updates to do, but is magiciangrantprice.com, magiciangrantprice.com, or mentalistgrantprice.com. They'll take you to the same place. Don't tell anybody. But and then as far as shows, yeah, so as I said, I do in-person events right now, so you know, as appropriate, if it's outdoor, indoor, obviously with social distancing, that kind of stuff, but I have done some in-person events and have a few coming up, which I'm really excited for, because again, it's just not the same. Virtual is really fun. You will laugh, you will have your mind blown, but in person, you just, you know, there's not a camera between us. But that being said, I've been doing a lot of virtual events. It's a 60-minute show. It's both available as a ticketed event, and we've made it ultra cheap, just so people can kind of get a preview of it. And if you're stuck at home, we just want it to be an option. So it's $10 a household. But you can get tickets for that at watchgp.com, as in watch, or as in watchgp.com. And we do that every Friday at 8:30 p.m. Central. I didn't have to say Central until virtual, and then people from different time zones were watching. So yeah, but that one's really fun, and it's every Friday. And then S'more Magic, we do have tickets. It is limited to 16, or rather 18 seats, and so the tickets do go pretty quickly. Our next one with available seating is February 13th. And it's in Hurst, Texas, if you're not familiar with that. HEB, basically North Fort Worth. But yeah, if you go to smoremagic.com, SMORE, no apostrophe, just smoremagic.com. Tickets are there. It's $30 a person. And so you'll fill out basically and tell me how many tickets you want, and I will reach out directly for tickets, because it's such a limited number. I have to reach out with available times and stuff. But February 13th is currently available, and that one's, it's not just a promotional deal. S'more Magic is probably the best show we've done to date, and we've been really excited about it. So
love it. Well, what a great way to go and spend the night before Valentine's Day. So go out, buy your tickets. And then speaking of promotions, of course, with the Pursuit of Growth with Sammy and I, you can go to our website to view other shows that we've done, read our blog, purchase our book. That website is www.livetpg.com. Feel free, if you're interested in buying the book and learning more about the Pursuit of Growth, you can do that there. You can also find all of our social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And we encourage you to follow us there. And man, one last time, Grant, thank you so much for joining on here. This was so much fun to just learn more about you, learn what you do, and obviously, see you actually perform. So excited to continue to watch you as you continue to grow with your business and just your personal life. And I think Sammy and I would both love to have you come on here again and talk some more and do some more shows.
yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you guys so much. I love this.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Grant. Really appreciate everything, and mind blown again. You did it again. So delight. You can go to bed tonight knowing that you delighted many people. So
awesome.
Cool.
Awesome.
All right.
Until next time.
I mean, thank you all.
Adios.
Bye.